Hello, and welcome back to Level 1 News. Today is March 15th, and we're doing government and security today. Also, I don't know if it'll show up on the camera, but don't mind the random flashes. There's stuff happening in another office today.
Or the screaming children.
If you can hear that. Hopefully you won't be able to hear that.
Yeah, maybe, but...
I don't know. It's pretty awful. We emerge into another week where there will be one topic dominating everything.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's not much we can do about it, but it does have major effects on the technology world.
Yes.
And technology is a big factor in what's going on, especially when it comes to data security. Of course, we've been talking about data security for how many years now?
Yeah.
Everybody banging that drum. But physical security.
What happens with your data centers in Kiev?
If you
Nothing
cannot
good.
restrict physical access to a server, you cannot protect it, which creates quite a difficulty.
Oh no, is the driver crash? There it goes.
There it goes.
Exclusive. Ukraine prepares potential move of sensitive data to another country. So, because the internet, and there's still power, it's like you can move things out. Also, Cloudflare. You know, Cloudflare has some servers. There's a distribution thing. So if the servers go offline for a period of time, they will automatically format themselves and erase all customer data.
The problem is, it's actually illegal under all the data protection rules to take it out of the country. So they would have to actually get together and rule that it's okay to take certain servers out of the country as the rockets are falling.
It's extenuating circumstances. I'm pretty sure the EU will give them a pass.
Maybe.
Well, they're not in the EU, right? Not yet.
Yeah.
So it'll just be their local government who has to decide.
Yeah.
It might not exist, so.
Great.
Meanwhile, Russia, they're having their own problems, and they're having quite a bit of them to do with technology because everybody has turned them off. So what do you do when you can't renew your certificate? Not because someone's telling you can't, but because you literally cannot get a payment to them.
Russia creates its own TLS certificate authority to bypass the sanctions. TLS encryption is a little bit problematic because it's a central authority.
There's some banging going on in the background, so if you hear that, we
We're
apologize.
under siege. So yeah. Now, if you're wondering how can they get away with that, well, they've done a few tricks to make it work. It shouldn't be like that. It should be a trusted authority. Not sure anybody trusts them at this point. And the run-of-the-mill Russians, who are not involved in any of this and are just suffering, they've been cut off from Netflix and all the little comforts that we have in this world. So the smart ones are probably, well, I don't know if this might not be smart. This might be a very stupid thing to do, but the desperate ones, what are they doing?
How Russians are evading the internet blockade. There are so many interesting posts on so many sites like Reddit that are, look at this amazing thing that I figured out a way around blah, blah, blah. There's also a couple people that have taken and put together compilations from all the influencers that live in Russia, all the people that have popular TikTok accounts and YouTube accounts and so on and so forth. And it all seems like they've read the same message. It's very... what was the Sinclair Communications? It was a very Sinclair Communications moment.
Was the VPN use was up 1,000%, I think, in Russia.
Yeah.
Was the number in that article.
They got these, and Ukraine's up too. And Zambia, for whatever reason, Zambia.
I like that they're included in this.
I guess they're number 3, right?
Yeah.
But a distant third, for sure. And all of that's great. You know, if you can get to a VPN, maybe they have some really poorly done controls. You can get around it. But there are some changes that are coming that you cannot escape.
The internet backbone giant Lumen has a shun.ru. That's the headline. But they're basically just a backbone provider. They provide, point-to-point fiber services. They're disconnecting Russia. Not only are they not providing internet service for Russia, traffic that previously would transit through Russia, like say you needed to get some data from, Spain to China, well, Russia might be a route that your fiber optic cable would take. No more.
And when you have been cut off from the world and completely isolated, you're going to lose things like software licenses. How do you license Microsoft Office in Russia? The answer is
you can't.
There is no path for doing that. So what do?
Russian mulls legalizing software piracy as it's cut off from Western tech.
Haven't they kind of already done this at this point?
Well,
Kind of.
they play lip service to it, but I don't think they enforce it too terribly hard.
Yeah.
Well, this is also like cloud services. Microsoft Office 365. Russia was a huge customer, or Russian customers, I should say, were a huge part of Microsoft Office 365, and those services have to go away. Almost, people have forgotten how to run a local mail server, so it's sort of problematic.
And when it comes to taking over things, that's not the biggest thing that they could take over. They're actually talking about McDonald's isn't willing to operate, but the restaurant is still here. The equipment is still here.
McVlad's.
We can get the stuff.
McComrade.
So, you know what? Well, then I'm not even going to call it that. What's better than not giving it your own name?
Russia says that it's going to just go ahead and use patents from anyone in quote-unquote unfriendly countries, which is basically everybody.
And later they added trademarks to that as well.
And they're not going to enforce any of it.
They might actually open McDonald's without McDonald's having anything to do with it.
I mean...
Would they ever come back to the country after that, though?
What blows my mind about all this is, Gorbachev is still alive. And he's probably looking at this saying, what's going on? He's like, he can't have his Pizza Hut anymore. Remember the Pizza Hut Gorbachev?
I watched that commercial this week. That is the most bizarre thing I've ever seen.
The opening of that McDonald's in Moscow was one of those Cold War moments. Yeah. Where I was like, it's over.
Yeah.
They're with us now.
People are hoarding McDonald's. I've seen photos going around social media where people have packed their fridges with McDonald's burgers.
Well, the good news is they'll never rot, right?
Yeah, you can eat those for ages.
I don't know if you should eat them, but probably shouldn't eat them now. And we continue to get more and more tech companies. Some of them are a little late to the party, but they are piling onto the dog pile of anti-Russia in a big way.
DuckDuckGo to downrank sites associated with Russian disinformation. As we always do, we caution, it's like, well...
How do you define that?
Yeah, who decides?
There was an update at the bottom of the article where they asked them and they responded, and they said that they were going to be basically downvoting RT, I think, the Russian news sites.
It's a lot of words, but they're basically just saying, yeah, we are doing this.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is clearly absurd. Some of the stuff that has been said is as absurd as an ancient alien civilization with a moon base left some magical free energy technology behind, and that's what everybody's after. And it's like, well, I mean, if you've got 17 official sources saying that, okay.
No, I don't trust any of them.
There might be an alien moon base with a free energy device.
It's crazy to me that we're looking at another superpower and we're saying, my God, look at their propaganda abilities. Look how easy it is for them to deceive their citizenry. And we don't look in that mirror 1 second. It's like, wait a minute.
That is kind of the point. Like all of the sort of the dark timeline stuff that we're always harping on, or watching somebody else do it. So it's a lot easier to see the dangers of all this. 1, shutting down the technology. 2, tracking the descent. 3, being able to... It's like, you posted this thing that doesn't sound like you are in line with the dear leader. And when somebody shows up at your house like that, it's like,
But also, I think it points out that our version... Our cancel culture version is super effective compared to theirs. Like the single man in charge, top-down control is not nearly as effective as cancel culture, as he is finding out, because that's destroying him. And some companies, God bless them, they built their whole world on the idea of decentralization and a lack of this kind of control, because you have to have that to have true freedom. But even those companies are just dipping their toes into that water.
Coinbase has blocked 25,000 crypto wallets linked to Russian users. Because what choice do they have?
They're not blocking everybody, but they are blocking ones that they claim they can prove are somehow involved in the war or connected to it in some way. Or are just, criminals or whatever. Which is worse, right? It's arbitrary blocking instead of blanket blocking. This is just more of we decide what's right and wrong. And Ukraine, as we know, have been getting quite a lot of crypto donations. We also learned last week that they just got some random NFTs that people sent them, and they're not sure what to do with them.
Nobody knows what to do with those.
The Washington Post gives us a little bit more detail on that.
Ukraine asked for adoption or donations in crypto, and then things got weird. So this talks a little bit about that. At first it's probably some well-meaning people popped up and said, hey, if that's a way that you want to send us money, that's fine, we'll deal with it. And then it was, well, here's some NFTs. And so it's like, On the one hand, like if Banksy shows up and creates artwork just for you and says, "Here, auction this," that could be really cool. But on the other hand, these are NFTs.
Just take a Bored Ape, slap some blue and yellow behind it. Somebody will buy it.
Yeah.
That could be good. If this goes on much longer, which God forbid, they might need to do that. Although they did point out that, what do they make? Like 20 million or something, maybe less than that. It's really not even a candle compared to how much are we sending them in our spending bill?
An obscene amount.
Way up
Tens of
there.
billions.
I think it's 20 billion, right?
Yeah.
So they're probably okay on money right now.
Didn't China send like 500 million? It was like a paltry amount compared to every other nation, I think.
Yeah, well. If you notice, that happens whenever there's a big outrage. All the companies will donate, but the donates will fluctuate based on where they are politically.
Yeah. It's also another aspect of this is that everything is so well connected that there are people on both sides of the conflict that are still posting to social media. And when you do that, the whole face recognition thing, which may or may not be accurate and all that comes into play. And it's like this person is like, oh, we spotted this group of soldiers moving this way. And the video is clear enough. You can very clearly make out their faces and then feed it to Clearview and then say, oh, this is their Instagram. So again, all the level 1 darkest timelines here are unfolding. And if you pay attention to the little details, the genie may already be out of the bottle on a lot of this stuff.
This does seem like the strangest sort of conflict where suddenly social media plays a part.
Yeah.
I mean, there are videos and stuff of other conflicts around the world, but this one, it's like it's happening in real time.
Oh, well, if not for social media, then the universal attack against Putin would not have materialized like this. Yeah, it's definitely unique. I think that's the thing that he didn't anticipate.
Yeah. Well, is it because most of, or a good percentage of Ukrainian citizenry were online and they had an online presence?
No, I think it's the whole world.
I mean, but think about Crimea. That happened, 2014?
Yeah.
But we didn't really have cancel culture in 2014.
We didn't really have, we had social media, but was it as big of a presence as it is now?
No, and it hadn't been, we hadn't experienced the Trump presidency, which really sort of distilled all of that and made it, a weapon to be used.
2016 was also the year Harambe died, so something changed then.
Well, Amazon, as you know, is being maligned for using seller data to enrich themselves. It's the kind of thing that they've been doing for a lot of years, so it's not surprising. But even when they're pressed by lawmakers, they tend to not give any sort of direct answer, which, surprisingly enough, is also the thing that the lawmakers always do, which is funny because it made them super angry when Amazon did it.
Amazon referred to the Department of Justice for potential criminal obstruction of Congress. This is for obtuse answers and answers that were misleading, if not untruthful.
Shouldn't Kamala Harris be under the jail if that's a criminal offense?
Misleading answers for things?
She doesn't even answer. She just cackles. And the crypto world continues to whipsaw around because no one's sure what's going on with money, and they don't know whether to get in or get out.
Bitcoin drops below 40,000 and stays there for quite a while, almost wiping out gains from Biden's crypto executive order. The executive order wasn't as bad as many feared, so everybody was excited.
It wasn't much of anything.
But then global politics, and then everybody was not super excited.
I realized that I entered this story as like a roll-up for also talking about the Biden thing, but the Biden thing really didn't say a whole lot.
No, it really didn't.
Just
he's got his hands full right now.
But, well, one thing it did say is that the Fed coin is coming. Now, the question is, will the Federal Reserve and the U.S. government ever compete with Bitcoin because Bitcoin will always be more valuable, or will they destroy it?
They'll probably destroy it. They're probably trying to figure out how to destroy it.
Every nation is trying to do that right now. They launch their own coin and try to
Not
destroy Bitcoin.
El Salvador, Krista.
Well, yeah. Almost every nation except for El Salvador.
The most brilliant minds on Wall Street and inside Goldman Sachs right now are hatching some sort of diabolical plan to poison the Bitcoin well.
Also, Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan were a couple of the holdouts. I didn't put stories in here because it's not really tech, but they were some of the last to exit Russia.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we have to go.
And, social media is a thorn in the paw of despotic leaders. They want to control it because things get out on there that they do not like.
Georgia Senate passes a bill seeking to regulate social media. This is I couldn't really tell a lot of difference between this bill and some of the other bills that passed in other states, but then failed once they were challenged at the Supreme Court level. Like the one in Florida, that was dumb.
Yeah, I think it all hinges on the argument of, some people say that they're editorializing.
By picking and choosing what to promote.
Which is probably true. But
I think their point was that they wanted them to remove certain things.
Yeah.
Or they didn't want them to remove certain things.
Well, it's the Republicans are saying that they're being, selected. Like, if you get a Black Lives Matter post and, a right-wing post, Proud Boys post, the Proud Boys post will go down.
Right.
Whereas the Black Lives Matter won't. And the tech people have been, very vocal about their political leanings.
Right.
But it gets into the question of, they can do what they want.
That's a private company. That's their argument.
Do you think maybe the only real fix here is to just make people understand that sometimes they'll see, like, somebody will post things to the internet that it's not true?
Or just something you just don't like?
No, people will never understand that. People will never get to the point where they see something they don't like and say, well, I just have to deal with that.
But I don't understand why state media is saying that we have this weird alien moon free energy device. Why would they say that? Would they just go on the news and tell lies?
Think they'll ever try to nationalize social media?
It's
I've thought about that. Like this lawsuit kind of made me think, will they try that eventually?
It's so hilarious that you say that because you weren't trying to, but that was a perfect analogy for green energy.
Yeah.
Oh, you were trying to do that. Whoa! Somebody's leaning a little right today. And when it comes to energy, that is a big topic. It's funny, speaking of, bias, Fox News has shifted the entire narrative onto the oil industry.
Yeah.
Like the oil lobby dollars are flowing over at Fox News. But the one thing that nobody seems to want to talk about
is nuclear. Rolls-Royce SMR design has been accepted for review in the UK. This is that design. We talked about this 2 years ago, and this is one of the new nuclear reactor designs. I am all for new nuclear reactor designs.
In another state.
Far away from where we live.
I would be okay if there was one in town. I would be okay with it.
We're the kind of poor where we could definitely get something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the kind of place where they're like, hey, nobody cares about that place.
Yeah. If there's a horrible radiation leak there, screw them.
Is it true that there's because Springfield and The Simpsons, and it's like, which Springfield is it? And there are several Springfields that have nuclear reactors, so it's kind of like, But this is a new design, and we can make a nuclear reactor that is safer and will fail more safely than the other ones. Like Chernobyl, which I always get the details wrong on. One of the reasons that they're only just now able to do dismantling, according to some of the articles, is because the fuel had to cool off for 20 years. It no longer requires active cooling because it's 20 years old now. It's basically fizzled out. And it's like, oh yeah, that was the design. It's like, that's not a good design.
And next year it can vote.
If it survives that long. Hopefully that isn't like something horrible by the time this releases and it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she made a joke about that.
Actually, it's interesting. I saw several headlines like midweek that Chernobyl and the one that starts with a Z, the big one, were both without power, but I never saw any follow-up.
No, there's follow-up. The International Nuclear Agency, I guess, that helps monitor, they say that all their monitoring stuff is gone. They can't get in contact with the staff at this point. They don't know if it has power. They don't know if Chernobyl cooling systems have power.
Chrissy, you said there's an update, but you just told me there's no update.
Well, there is an update. The update is, the IA couldn't get hold of them before, or they could get hold of them before. They can't now. So they have no way to check in on it.
They had telemetry.
Yeah.
But the Russians have disconnected that.
Yeah.
Or the power going out has disconnected.
Yeah, they have no way to know what it's like now.
Chernobyl doesn't require active cooling because the fuel's 20 years old, but it's still percolating. The one that starts with a Z has 2 of 5 power lines on, but they don't have great communication with that.
That one either, yeah.
You know what's great? Apparently the people who were working there were working at gunpoint, and they didn't let them take breaks. But the great thing about it, if you want a cup of tea, just go over and dip it down the reservoir. It's already boiling.
Delicious.
Maybe if you could convince your captors that would make a delicious cup of tea.
It's the ultimate cleanse.
It's not going to save you in the short term, though. How long is that going to take to kill somebody? A day or two? Well, if we can, for a moment, forget the horror that's going on over in Western Europe, let's think about problems we had before all of this, because those problems are still there, and people are still railing against the horror of the tracking nation.
TechCrunch reports Italy has fined Clearview AI 20 million euros and orders the data to be deleted. Like, there's not a lot of new information here other than Italy looked at what we've covered in the past for what Clearview is doing. And, there's the saying, it's like if you're going to sin boldly. Clearview AI is sinning very, very boldly. And Italy is looking at this saying, no, you're building a worldwide facial recognition database. What if people use that? What if there's a conflict where everybody's got a cell phone and a drone and they're taking really high resolution pictures of everybody and looking them up on the internet? That seems like that would be bad.
Now, Clearview responded and they said, we don't operate in Italy. So what you going to do about it?
But data from Italy was used that was posted to the internet.
Yeah, they say that's fine. They're allowed to do that. They checked with themselves. In China, China is being very quiet. And that's probably the smart thing to do right now, right? Just wait. They're doing the Sun Tzu thing. Let your enemies make mistakes and do nothing. And in the meantime, their economy is humming right along, and I'm sure that they are looking forward to filling all those orders going north.
China led the world with a 500,000 electric car export in 2021. 500,000 electric cars. Probably going to be a few fewer now with the nickel cost being what it is.
Yeah, the nickel.
Is that the next story? I don't know.
No, I didn't put the nickel story in. That's not technology.
No, there was a Tesla story. Is that not in this section?
Oh, it's in business. Yeah,
we'll talk about the nickel when we do that story. I forgot about that one. And, this is another one of those stories that's like, well, yeah, we kind of knew this, but are they taking advantage of us being distracted, maybe?
Cybersecurity firm says Chinese hackers breached 6 U.S. state agencies. We need to know what they know now, and now they do.
And it turns out they've been there for a while.
Yeah.
Probably got a lot of stuff.
They've probably been there since the OPM hack.
You got to give it up to the Chinese. They're very good at getting in and being patient. Patience seems to be a big part of the Chinese strategy. And remember the one where they faked them out by stealing a little bit of money just to throw off suspicion?
Yeah.
That's a truly Chinese play right there. Brilliant. But not good news for us. And, of course, the other cybersecurity that we know the hacking has to be happening around the clock, right?
The Ukraine and the U.S. were both targeted by cybersecurity attacks in the run-up to Russian invasion. So this has some more details. Some companies got together, they looked at their logs, and they said, hey, wait, this was a coordinated attack. This wasn't just the usual background noise of doing business on the internet. This was an actual coordinated thing. Now, not all those attacks were successful or marginally successful, but still it's interesting that those data points are exposed that way. Also, your cybersecurity insurance. If you have an incident and it requires somebody to come in and spend a bunch of time fixing you up, they're not going to cover that right now.
There was a lot of talk early on during the invasion, which is weird because we're getting to a point where early on was way back then.
Like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. But there was a lot of talk about, it's like, well, we know they have this big hacking campaign. Why are they not using that more effectively? And I think the answer might be that he didn't ever expect it to get to this point.
Yeah.
Like he didn't even think he needed the hacking team. Just distract them before we attack.
This is going to be a weekend at Bernie's operation. We were going to get in, we were going to get out. It was going to be fine.
Weekend at Zelensky's. And we do have the hackers on the other side of the aisle. Most of them seem to be just a big mass of untalented people trying to be a part of it, but clearly some of them are getting in.
Transparency Org releases alleged leak of Russian censorship agency. 800 gigabytes of data from Roskomnadzor. And that Anonymous has claimed responsibility. So this is mostly emails, but it is nice to sort of peer behind the curtain. It's like, no, you must not refer to that as this. It must be referred to as this.
How much of a time slice is 800 gigabytes for the Russian apparatus of spying?
I'm sure we can answer that with this data set, but I don't know.
I think it's got to be amazingly short, right? Probably not a ton of time. And the companies continue to get hacked. They continue to lose valuable information. It's kind of becoming a run-of-the-mill thing, which is weird.
Samsung confirms confirms that the Galaxy Source breach happened, but says no customer information was stolen. That doesn't matter. The customer information stealing comes later. Do you see? That's not actually comforting for them to say that. See also the NSO group.
And Nvidia, of course, finding out that even if it's not customer data, it can be a huge pain for you.
Stolen Nvidia certificates used to hide malware and driver downloads. So this is the first of two major things that are going to happen with malware as a result of this leak. This one is just driver signing. The certificates were stolen. Your operating system is going to have to look for these old certificates and not trust any software that's written with them, which means you need to update your driver, and your driver is going to use a new certificate. And that's not the worst of it. The worst part of it is like the Samsung hack. Now that they have the software, they will find vulnerabilities in it. Because it's not open source, they're probably not up to snuff in terms of security hardening. And this is not the first time this has happened. So it will create a vector for malware that if you've got, an Nvidia driver that has a certain architectural vulnerability in it, that the malware will be able to use that to escalate its privileges to something else, which is what's coming for Samsung Galaxy owners, I promise you. That source code will mysteriously find its way into the hands of NSO Group or a company like NSO Group, and they will absolutely use that to find an exploit and surreptitiously install software.
Also, those certificates will generally still work right now. You can set your antivirus software, in most cases, like Windows Defender, to ignore the expired certificates, but it won't by default.
Yeah.
So watch out for that. And download from Nvidia.com, for the love of God. Why would you be getting your drivers somewhere else?
I mean, if you have to register for the GeForce experience, I guess you can, but the GeForce, that's just terrible. That's, again, the marketroids are like, we need
Watch these
email."
ads while this updates.
Yeah. it's just-
I truly believe, and deep in my heart, that they slow down that process to get more ads in that.
Oh, I
slideshow.
believe it.
Yeah. And it's not very often that we see super critical Linux bugs. Now, there are some gotchas at the end that maybe this is not the end of the world, but it's pretty scary.
Linux has been bitten by its most high-severity vulnerability in years. The dirty pipe vulnerability has the potential to smudge people using Linux and Linux derivatives.
What a strange stock image they've used for this article.
The person read the article and they had no idea.
Yeah.
Couldn't they put like a penguin in the shark's mouth?
Nah, it should be like one of those nasty industrial runoff pipes.
Oh, yeah.
Come on.
When the penguin's stuck in it.
So it turns out pipes are convenient ways of piping information from processes to disks, or from processes to files, or from processes to processes. It turns out you can create a situation where the pipe will be reused, and that may pollute the pipe with data. And if you're very careful about that, you can get some privilege escalation. You can do some other fun things.
Yeah, it's pretty nasty. I imagine they'll patch it.
It's
pretty
already
quickly.
patched.
Oh, wow.
And the Echo, I don't know. You think the Echoes are still as hot as they were? Are they still selling a lot of those? I haven't seen a lot of numbers for that.
I don't
Seems
know
like-
anybody who wants one, really, but
I bet a lot of them are just sitting there doing nothing. You think they're still listening?
Yes, they're still listening.
Yeah, that's a rhetorical question. So the thing about the Alexa, though, is the Alexa can hear itself talking, and it can take commands from itself. That seems like a weird security issue.
Attackers can force Amazon Echoes to hack themselves with self-issued commands.
So you get yourself a Bluetooth connection, and then you pass that audio through to play it through the Alexa, and then the Alexa hears it, and they say, oh, I know what to do with that. I'll do something. They also pointed out that by adding a 6-second delay and just saying yes, you get by the whole confirmation thing.
wow.
It's like that time that we tricked everybody into ordering 5-pound bags of gummy bears.
But we didn't know to do that. Next time. And it seems like the new telemetry tracking horrible Big Brother world, the way they're going to get the youth into it is by making all the fun things that they want to do require it. But God bless them, they're fighting back a little bit.
Red Rocks Amphitheater will no longer use Amazon's palm scanning technology. It's like, oh, you want to go to the amphitheater? Scan your palm, please.
That's a pretty sweet amphitheater. Look at that rock. You think people climb that rock and fall and get hurt all the time?
Probably. They might have to keep security around it during shows to be like, stay off the rock,
Get a
please.
couple of beers in you
Yeah.
at a Neil Young show.
I'm going to climb that mountain.
And this just goes to show you that when it comes to tracking even though we have these laws, even though it's all, it's at the front of a lot of people's minds, some people, when they hear about it, they're just like, yeah, we should do that. And they don't think about the implications at all.
George Washington University apologizes for its data project monitoring system, where it was monitoring students' locations and literally everything that they did.
Not just students, it was the staff too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you get the student ID as a student, or the staff ID as staff, and you're buzzing through doors, and you're going to the exercise area, and you're passing under their closed circuit television system. Well, guess what? All of that was creating entries in a database the whole time. And then somebody looked at that and said, my goodness, what are we doing?
And they said, listen, we completely anonymize this data. We can never tie this back to a human being. And then someone pointed out, you in your data, you separate by gender. And they're like, oh yeah, we track that.
No,
gender we track.
So like our university, we had the key card system like that. And I remember I know that they checked it because getting into the dorms required a key card swipe, and they wanted to make sure like no one was letting other people in who were from outside of the university. So it's like, how do you know unless you're checking people's names to make sure they're part of that dorm?
We had our dorm, the doors on some of those buildings, they lock at the top. And as we would go out, we'd flip the lock up, which means when the door closed, it wouldn't close.
Right.
So everybody would just come in and out, and it was a constant cat and mouse game.
Yeah.
Sometimes they would have a custodial guy just kind of like hiding in the bushes trying to catch you do it.
We had a low-tech version of that where it was just put a brick in the door.
That was so stupid. But that was we started college in 2000, so that next year it got a lot more serious.
We rolled out a test of that, and it turns out that wasn't good. So now we need to roll out a more sophisticated test.
Well, I really thought this week would be longer. Maybe we're just getting too efficient at this. Another 30 minutes.
Well, I mean, half of it is just bad things happening in Ukraine.
Yeah.
And probably spreading elsewhere as well.
Who knows? But we'll see you tomorrow.
Had a little bit more business news too, so maybe it'll be.
Yeah, the business news is the longest one of the week. So if you're looking for a big meaty episode, it's going to be on Wednesday.
We'll see you then. Bye.